All right, everyone. Welcome to the Enter the Mind podcast. This is episode 3. My name is Robert Nelson, and I'm here with my co-host. Can you introduce yourself?
Kyra Carlin.
And today will be audio only. It turned out quite well, actually. Last episode, the audio only section had a lot of very good sound bites. So let's focus on that. Today's episode, Kyra, I believe you had a topic for us.
Yes, so I wanted to talk about placebo effects on the mind because I think that's a really good topic. So placebo effects.
So so tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I was in the car and I get pretty witchy sometimes. So there's sayings, sort of like witch rituals that in the morning when you wake up, you look at your cup of tea, the coffee that you're making, and you're like, okay, well, this is a special juice, it's to bring me wealth, and, you drink it and it's supposed to help manifestations. And it actually, you can feel it within seconds working. You can just feel it working. So I was thinking to myself, and it's like, okay, well, it's kind of like how our parents tell us to eat vegetables when we're a kid, because they'll help us grow big and strong, right? But like if the world were to sort of change and they would start offering, people like quote unquote placebo effects, but like say it became a trend, to straight up look at your coffee in the morning and think of it as whatever juice is what you want to drink. Like imagine if it were a genie giving it to you, you'd obviously believe it. So imagine that, and I feel like it'd be a lot better than being handed a prescription for Xanax or Adderall. I guess that stuff does help people sometimes, I've heard, but like I still kind of have stronger beliefs that you can fix it naturally. So placebo effects, that's what this is that we're talking about.
Wow. I have 2 really good points on that. You just planted so many seeds with that. I don't know if
Yay.
I don't know if people realize the significance of what you're saying, because it's quite significant. And this podcast really is about exploring the mind, the entering the mind. We've got this room in our house, which is our mind, and this room has been here all along, but we've kept the door locked and we haven't gone in. And as a result, people walk around with a misconception of what their mind is, and the extent of their knowledge of psychology is pretty much 1 or 2 Malcolm Gladwell books that they've read, and they think that they understand the mind, and it's anything but that. So to come back to what you said, this drinking of the coffee or juice or whatever insert your favorite beverage, coupled with this sort of I guess you could call it an incantation or some sort of statement or affirmation of, this, by drinking this, I will become rich, or this will bring me riches. And, that's going to trigger a lot of things in people. It's going to cause people to say, oh yeah, that's law of attraction. Oh yeah, that's this or that. And try to put it in a box. But let's strip all of that away, because all of those are concepts. I just want to focus on the structure and why something that from one angle, it can seem sort of like silly, like, okay, how can coffee bring you money? About, where's the connection there? However, I think it unveils an important aspect of the mind that people don't realize. And that aspect is this, that the mind, we really we really don't control it as much as we think we do. What we control is we kind of control what we put on the conveyor belt at the beginning of the process. Like if we want to, like we can control like what we think about to some extent. We can control like our thoughts. We can say, you know, I'm going to not watch the news, and instead every day I'm going to read 5 pages in my personal development book, right? That's a choice that anybody can make. And by changing how you spend those 5 minutes, you're changing what fodder or what you put into your mind, right? You choose what you put onto that conveyor belt, but after you put it on the conveyor belt, it's kind of out of your hands. The mind will take that and will conveyor belt that stuff right through the factory. And there's all of these processes in that factory that you do not control. And so people can get these crazy results from doing these things. And so I immediately kind of what you say resonates with me, if you know what I mean.
I love the conveyor belt thing because it's so true. It's like you put it on the conveyor belt, and then like your brain, you said your mind is going to take that, you know, all wherever the hell it wants to take it. But it is a little seed. It is something that was put on the damn conveyor belt that's going to conveyor belt that stuff. Oh my God, you make me laugh so hard. I love it. Conveyor belt, conveyor belt that stuff to, you know, wherever it's going to go in your brain. And it's really, really interesting. I love talking about this topic of placebo effects, and I'm going to get a little bit off topic right now because it relates back to what you were saying. So I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to take it to this place that it says, so, you know, people with 2 different lives, right? It's who you pretty much know what somebody's putting on their conveyor belt, you know, because, you know, clearly, all right, you see somebody who's fit, you know, has a really happy relationship, and has a big, great house, right? She's clearly putting things on her conveyor belt that are going to get her there. But if you see, you know, there's exercise on her conveyor belt. There's, eating healthy foods on her conveyor belt. There's, communicating with her partner on a conveyor belt. There's, you know, being able to be vigilant enough to find a nice home and, you know, get money, right? So these are things that are going on her conveyor belt. But if you're looking at somebody, you know, who's overweight, lives in like a super tiny apartment and doesn't have a love life, you know damn well what the fuck they're putting on their conveyor belt. It's self-hate, self-shame, limiting beliefs. You know, that's what's the cool thing about, you know, that. And as much as I want to go into that right now, and I know I feel like you're going to have like a good amount to say about that. I feel like you're going to love that. But I definitely want to get back on the topic of the placebo effect after this, unless you have something to say. What you got for me?
Well, kind of what grabbed my attention from what you were saying was the what was it? The self-doubt or the self-criticism, something like that.
Yes.
So the negativity, the way I see it is that if we're going to use this conveyor belt analogy, yes. So if you're loading the conveyor belt with those negative thoughts, that's going to have an effect, and you cannot change the effect that negative thoughts have on you, right? So it's kind of like eating junk food, right? So where our freedom exists is in what food we choose to put in our bodies. That's the parallel to loading the conveyor belt, is we can choose to put something, you know, we can choose to have something healthier than junk food. But what we don't control is how the system runs. So we can change what we put in the system, but we can't change the fact that the system processes junk food in a way that's not good for the body. Like we can't wave a magic wand, and we don't have free will over like what our intestines do with like bad chemicals and bad food, right? It gets processed the way it gets processed. The same with negativity. Those negative thoughts will tear up someone's self-esteem, right? And will bring someone down. And that's because of the way the psyche and the mind is built for everybody. So that's a universal, and we don't have control over that. We just have control over whether we think the positive thoughts or the negative ones. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I literally have the most beautiful connection in my life. So you're saying you can put the negative emotions or the negative blah blahs on the conveyor belt, right? But you can't change the way that they make you feel. That is natural law. That is going to happen. If you jump off of a building, you're going to hit the ground. You're going to die, right? If you think negative thoughts, you are going to feel bad. You can't change the outcome because that is part of natural law. But you can, put the self-hate or self-shame on the conveyor belt, right? So if a placebo effect works, as I was saying earlier, with, being handed something and saying, this will help, you can trust me, this will help. And, they believe it, right? But what about, so if you believe it and you take this, chances are, like, more likely than not, it's going to work, right? So you can take that, but you can't change the outcome of what happens after you take that. Okay. And then if I'm waking up in the morning and, I trust that this coffee was given to me by God or a fucking super cool genie with like a sick fucking outfit on, and like some cool ass shades, right? Imagine he gave you this tea that all of a sudden made you wealthy, or all of a sudden got you the perfect relationship of your life. I'm sure you'd look at that shit that he's handing you and you'd be like, yes, please, I want to drink this. You promise it's going to work? And they're like, yeah, it's like, be a little kid again. Don't be afraid to dream, right? So, take this cup, and if you really believe that, and you're taking this cool magic cup from a genie, and you're really believing that, you can put that on your conveyor belt, but you cannot control the outcome. So if you're feeling good about this, you're drinking the juice, it's pretty much like it's real, then you release that energy out into the universe, and that is no longer in your hands. You have absolutely no control over that, and it's most likely going to bounce back to you in the vibration that you gave off. And if that vibration was happy as fuck because you just received a cup of magical freaking tea that gave you whatever it was that you wanted at that moment, it's going to come back to you. So that is what I have, and I think it's absolutely delicious.
Yep, I can taste it. So that last part you said, I love it. What you said, you release that energy back into the universe, which, yeah, at least as far as my mind goes, that pulls up this whole field, this whole realm of physics. And I think in past episodes we may have talked about this, maybe the connection that I see between physics and psychology. But if physics has these subfields, things like thermodynamics, and there's these laws, energy in a system, energy in a system cannot leave the system, like all these, and Newton's laws of physics, object at rest will stay at rest, blah, blah, blah. The significance of those theories was that all of a sudden they kind of explained these invisible forces like gravity or magnetism that up until that point, people didn't really understand. They just kind of like thought of it as like magic, like, okay, yeah, the, objects just fall to the ground because of some strange magical force, or two magnets with opposite poles will attract each other and the same poles will repel each other. And it's just some sort of like magical force. But we now have the science to understand that. Now, what if several hundred years from now, people have the science to understand the very thing that we're talking about in this episode of saying that this coffee will bring me riches. And at this point, the best we can do to explain this phenomenon is to pull up some term like the placebo effect. And that's the best we can do to kind of like explain what's going on here, or to label it. But I think that in the future, what's going to happen is people are going to actually understand that placebo effect was a misnomer, because placebo effect means that there was nothing going on almost. When they do these comparison experiments with, they give a blood pressure pill to one group, and then they give a sugar pill to the other group, and then they see, oh, look, the blood pressure, went down in both groups. And so the group that had the sugar pill, they just, their blood pressure just went down because they thought it would go down. So it's placebo effect. But really, I think that really begs the question, because something is going on there. I've always said placebo effect is still in effect. So if these people expect their blood pressure to go down and then it subsequently goes down, that really begs the question, what is the mind-body connection there? And what is the mechanism of action? How exactly does that work? And I think people don't realize it quite yet, but I can't help but think that in the future, we're going to be able to explain that process very clearly, if not mathematically. What do you think about that?
It was so good. It was so good. Let me think for a minute. I feel like the topic also to agree with what you said and actually use the exact wording, it begs another question of, if we're told something and we believe it, then it just begs like this. I don't even know if I want to go there right now. That's crazy. Yeah, I think we'll save that one for another episode. Yeah, because we definitely don't have time for that right now, but we've still got time left. But yeah, so pretty much, I mean, I think that we hit a lot of good points there with the placebo effect, because it really allows people to see like the power of their mind here on Earth. And if you really just, if you have an imagination, and we all do, really, if you have an imagination and you can imagine anything you want, how about you dream again? How about you pretend like you were when you were super little and you just imagined what you wanted? And even if it didn't happen, it doesn't matter, because it makes you feel good to dream of a life like that. I think that people got afraid to dream, over these past years. And I mean, I think that we all are 100% capable and all have an equal chance at getting up and doing the damn thing, no matter what happens. And you commit yourself to that. And if you commit yourself to that, the inside of you, it opens something up where you are dedicated and you are committed, and you wind up getting these weird voices in your head when you're going down the wrong road, and it's because you got your back. That's your higher self talking to you, and it's putting you back in motion. And if you're open enough, it will talk to you. And if you do this placebo effect, I totally got off topic again, but God, it's such a beautiful topic. So anyways, drink that rich bitch juice, drink that grounded ass tea, and fucking have a ball with it, and go wild, because we can.
Yeah, I think that I think one of the big takeaways from this episode is just the real down to earth practical aspect of this topic, right? It's where some people might look at this and label it as, oh, there's that woo woo manifestation, new age stuff. And if people say that, I don't think that they understand it, because there's so much value in this. There's value in waking up in the morning and saying, I'm going to have a good day, or I'm going to make today good. And so it doesn't have to be anything wild and crazy like, oh, this tea is going to make me a millionaire tomorrow. Obviously there's some, there's some degree of like realisticness that we have to abide by. Yeah. But I think that what we can say with a lot more certainty is that the objects that you hold in consciousness, and by objects, I mean like thoughts, images, sound bites, feelings, all of those, these abstract objects, that's what I mean. The objects that we hold in consciousness, that's the beginning of the conveyor belt. And that is the input to the factory. And the output to the factory is going to be, it's going to be your actions. It's going to be your intuition. It's going to be little things that you notice and that you pick up on in your environment, little cues that you catch, and then as a result, you act on those, and pretty soon things begin to change. And so, yes, there is one aspect to this which is kind of mysterious, and it's kind of like, but it's no more mysterious than gardening. I mean, if you think about, we accept gardening as a science, and that you take this little tiny seed, you put it in the ground, you water it, you come back 3 months later, and now you have an apple tree growing. And it's like we accept that. I mean, how magical is that? And yet we accept that as like, oh yeah, well, the seed divided by, the biological process of blah, 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 and then it sprouted, and the DNA and the RNA, blah, blah. So we accept that as like real, but how absurd. Think of that, how absurd if you were looking at planet Earth from outer space, and you see these people planting seeds in the ground, and then 3 months later, boom, a tree pops out with food on it. It's like, what is that, right? Well, the same thing. It's like, it's not so far of a stretch to think that your mind, you put a seed in your mind, and after an amount of time, it actually sprouts, and it ends up in, in these, causing these little differences that add up over time to something big, like a tree, But we're at 25 minutes, so why don't you close us out? Any final thoughts?
So, I think to close it up would definitely be that obviously there are some differences, between a flower and minor differences between a flower and our thoughts, because yes, though we are planting seeds in our head, it's like a flower. You plant it and you water it, like you said, but that's what we also have to do. Like, we can't plant a seed in our head and expect it to grow without watering it, because that's not how it works. Just like how how it works with a flower when you're planting the flower and you don't water it. That's not how it works. Those aren't the rules. So you know that you have to water it. And that's really the way it works in life. You pick something, you plant it, you go for it, and eventually it becomes your reality. And it sounds so simple. I know it's a bit harder than, a bit more grueling than it seems, but it's fun. It's really fun, and it becomes a fun thing every day. Um, oh God, it's so good. All right. So those are my final words.
Rock on. Yeah, I think that this was, I think we covered it. There's, we could even do a part 2 potentially to this topic, because
Mhm.
there's so many applications of it. But I think we did a good job. If there's any questions from the listeners or viewers, feel free to put that in the comments, and we will answer those in future episodes. So until next Monday.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.